All right, so now I'm going to be focused on glazing the exterior. I've got the interior completed. I have two thin coats. The second coat of tree green specifically is almost dry. It's nearly fully dry. It's just a few sections drying. And I've got tree green also over the rim of the cup, and I've decided to give this old student piece a Christmas theme. I'm going to do green and red stripes on the outside, so I'm going to continue to use that tree green, and I'll introduce a cherry red glaze in just a minute. Now in the meantime, I realized that my stripes are too fat here, and so I've begun to scrub away some of the tree green. I don't recommend doing that. It's kind of wasteful. It's basically, painting glaze on and then wiping it away. And remember, glaze is liquid glass, so it's really expensive. But in some cases, you might have some regrets, you may have some issues, and you need to remove a little glaze. So that's how you do it. You take a damp sponge, as you saw me hold a second ago, and you pretty much scrub away evidence of the glaze. It will leave a wet spot, which is a problem because, as I stated in a previous video, glazes don't stick to wet spots. Glazes don't bond well at a wet spot. So technically, I should put this student piece back on my cart, let it kind of dry out overnight, let that wet spot dry out, and then proceed to glaze the next day. But for the sake of this video and timing of this video, I'm going to glaze, near that wet spot. Okay? So just, be mindful of your glazes and make thoughtful decisions, and so you're content with the colors you're using and where you're using them as well. So now I'm going to be working with the red glaze, which is literally a cherry red, super high gloss. And keep in mind that for some reason the glazes in the red family, orange family, and yellow family are a bit smelly. They have a very strong odor. There's a particular mineral in the red, orange, and yellow glazes that produces a rotten egg smell. So you've been warned. It's only seems to be that family of colors. Now, because I'm using the red glaze, I could freshen up my water and clean out my cup and add new water. But if you're short on time, and many of you will be, you can do what I'm doing here instead and just kind of aggressively move the paintbrush around. Basically, I'm trying to drown those bristles of hair, make sure I get rid of any green glaze off of those bristles, and kind of aggressively move the paintbrush, and then I'm blotting it dry. So that works as well. You don't have to technically freshen up your cup of water every time you bounce from one glaze color to another. It's totally up to you if you want to do that or not. All right, so I've got my paintbrush clean. I'm not going to, cross-contaminate. I don't have any green glaze on my paintbrush that will kill the red color. So you want to be mindful of cross-contamination. So I'm just making sure that my paintbrush is relatively clean. And now I'm going to do a paintbrush stroke and apply my first coat, one thin coat of the cherry red glaze. And I'm going to start my green and red candy cane stripes that are going to wrap all the way around this student piece. So I've got to reload. I can tell my paintbrush is running low of the red glaze, so I went back to reload. And so now I've got one thick candy cane stripe. Now sometimes your work will be a little bumpy, and that might make glazing difficult. This student piece definitely has some bumpy areas on the outside. And sometimes you just don't have a steady hand, and your hand might be a little shaky when you glaze. So I'll talk more about that in a minute. Now you can see my first coat is starting to dry. It has a slight interaction with the green, just a little bit of an overlap, a minimal overlap. That could produce a dark color, that could produce a new color. We'll see. You got to keep an open mind. And as soon as that first coat of red is dry, I'm going to experiment with some masking tape and show you a technique involving masking tape where you mask off an area you just glazed, and you proceed to try to paint a straight line using the masking tape. Now, the thing is, you got to have a high quality masking tape, and I don't really, so this may not stick well. So I've got my piece of masking tape, and you're going to want to press hard on that, press down, line it up with the edge of your glazed area. So in my case, the edge of that red stripe. And I'm doing this after my first red coat is dry. Now I'm going to proceed to paint some green glaze, and I'm going to paint, over the masking tape. It's just like when you use masking tape to paint a wall in your kitchen, right? You're using the masking tape to block a color and to protect another color living under the masking tape. So I'm jumping to another color, which means I got to kind of clean up my paintbrush, as you saw me do. All right, so I've got masking tape protecting the dried red glaze, and now I'm going to paint on the bisqueware, and I'm painting partially on the masking tape. Hopefully my green glaze doesn't seep under the masking tape. It might. This wasn't a good stick to begin with, so yeah, you can see there's a little bit of a wonky edge there. Again, it's just a matter of the quality of the masking tape and how sticky it is. And sometimes masking tape struggles to stick onto dried glaze. So it might just be better to freehand in this case and just work slowly and carefully and drag that paintbrush down and try to have a steady hand as much as possible. And again, I'm just going to continue this pattern and of red and green. And so I'll have kind of a Christmas themed piece of glazeware here. Just be careful with the glazes. Try not to be wasteful. Again, we're dealing with liquid glass.